Friday Night Tyranny Fight. The best Friday news show in the history of anything. Ever. This week, Trump temporarily, we'll see, seized control of D.C.'s Metro Police under the Home Rule Act and mobilized about 800 D.C. National Guard personnel. And Wednesday, at his takeover of the Kennedy Center, Trump said,
"We're going to be asking for extensions on that, long-term extensions, because you can't have 30 days. I don't want to call national emergency. If I have to, I will."
They're waving around raw, out-of-context arrest data. But a 10-second Google search shows D.C. crime data with pretty big decline since 2023, and violent crime at its lowest level in decades. And of course, he immediately took to the airwaves during that same Kennedy Center press conference to warn the rest of the country of his fascist goals, directly threatening New York,
Chicago, Los Angeles, and other places all over the country.
The latter of which, of course, he's already tried to muscle with troops and federal agents under the guise of law and order. Oh, and BT dubs. The Fed presence isn't limited to just guard troops. Multiple news outlets have posted images of agencies like FBI, ATF, CPB, Park Police, and more working the streets. And even the male cops are in the mix now. No, I didn't say mall cops. I said male cops. Yeah, just when you thought the parade of federal badges was done, here come the United States Postal Inspectors. Yeah, they've been pulled into the great street sweep. And if you're thinking, oh, that's adorable, you haven't read their rap sheet. These are serious cops with a surveillance toolkit that makes civil libertarians sweat like a Republican in church. I'm just saying. And of course, speaking of sweaty church ladies, we all saw the always moist Jeanine Pirro grasping for some spotlight. The newly minted Right Honorable U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia has been right out front beating the D.C. on fire drum. We're not even going to talk about the fact that she's filed felony assault charges against a guy for tossing a Subway sandwich, probably not even a foot long, at a cop. Okay, I guess that was a foot long.
We charge him with a felony. So there, stick your Subway sandwich somewhere else.
Maybe she thinks that'll help rebut those pesky crime is down to historic lows data the Democrats keep pointing to.
I recommend we send around 20 officers to his place at midnight.
Good. Yes.
And then we post a video of it on social media.
Bingo! This won't backfire at all.
I don't need any more statistics.
But mostly she seems really worked up about the wild, roving bands of children that she seems to think have brought our dear capital to its knees.
We're seeing far too much crime being committed by young people.
Apparently now she wants more power to punish the kids harder, I guess.
14, 15, 16, 17 years old that I can't get my hands on.
Good Lord. I'll bet that if you ask ChatGPT to draw you a picture of an evil stepmom, it's gonna look a lot like Pirro. Hang on. Here. Yeah. And this kind of stuff never comes without precedent. These people have no original ideas. The history kind of jumps out at you. Let me give you a couple of examples. In 1932, the Hoover administration had a public relations problem. No, he wasn't best friends with one of the most prominent in history that we know of, but he was, much like our tangerine jello president, in the middle of wrecking the country's economy. Thousands of desperate, jobless World War I veterans, the Bonus Army as they were called by the press, had set up camp in Washington, peacefully demanding an early payout of promised bonuses. Herbert Hoover framed it as a security threat. His top general, Douglas MacArthur, took the order and ran with it, sending cavalry, infantry, and tanks to clear them out. He violently drove the vets from the streets with bayonets and sabers, tear gas and tanks. Instead of stopping there as ordered, he pressed the attack across the river, torching the poor people's shantytown, burning it to the ground, and scattering its residents with brutal force. The imagery was seared into history. The U.S. military, bayonets fixed, gassing and burning out the very men who'd fought for the country. The lesson here is pretty clear. All you have to do is redefine a civic problem as a security threat. The leap to troops in the street becomes the easy part. Once they're there, the mission always creeps. Which is why, a few decades later, Congress passed the Posse Comitatus Act to slam the brakes on presidents who get the bright idea to turn the U.S. military into their own domestic police force. The question now is whether it's strong enough to stop a megalomaniac like Trump, or if we're about to watch him kick it over like a wet cardboard box while everyone just watches. As for the roving bands of kids panic, some of my older viewers might remember the 1990s invention of the Superpredator, a racist political myth about a tidal wave of juvenile murderers with no conscience, no empathy. The language was always coded, but everyone knew it meant black and brown kids. The lie fueled draconian sentencing laws, a juvenile prison boom, and a generation of young people locked away for life over crimes that often didn't even happen. The myth eventually collapsed under its own bad data, but not before it rewired our justice system. And here we are again, with new faces selling the same old panic. It's the same playbook with a new dust jacket. Invent a crime that doesn't exist, point to the right kinds of villains, and demand harsher laws to prove you're tough enough to stop them. In the 90s, that script stole decades from a generation of black and brown kids. If we let it run again, it'll do exactly what it did last time: wreck lives, swell prisons, and leave the real problems untouched. The next few weeks will tell us if this is really temporary or if the model is about to spread. Watch the legal justifications shift from the Home Rule Act now to trial balloons about the Insurrection Act later, because rest assured, when the justification changes, the rules on troops will change with it. Keep an eye on the roster too. When FBI and ATF give way to HSI, Marshal Special Ops, and new task forces, this occupation will start to look permanent. Listen for officials cherry-picking horror stories to drown out the reality that violent crime in D.C. just hit a 30-year low. And remember the juvenile scapegoating. Pirro and her allies centering kids to push harder laws is politics first, policy second. And we've seen where that road goes. If you start hearing talk in Congress about long-term extensions or exporting this playbook to other cities, that's your signal that this was never about one city or 1 month. Stay alert, patriots. The country's ours, too. I'll see you next time.